Manchester United 0, Manchester City 3, a game that shows that the cracks at Manchester United are deeper than most of us probably thought of. Hi guys, my name is Izzy, here to review Manchester United's loss to Manchester City in what was a crucial Manchester derby for Manchester City as they aim to try and keep pace with Tottenham, Arsenal, and Liverpool at the top of the table. But the story going into this game is not really Manchester City, because we knew that they were going to do well anyway. The story is Manchester United and the malaise that is befalling Old Trafford in what was a very difficult last month that saw Sir Alex Ferguson, Manchester United's iconic manager, lose his wife, and saw Sir Bobby Charlton also pass away last week. But anyway, if you're new to the channel, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and hit that like button to let YouTube and everybody else know that you are enjoying this content. This game was prefaced by the fact that Manchester City needed to win this game simply to keep up to pace with Arsenal and Liverpool and Tottenham. Now, Tottenham are the surprise leaders, and a lot of people have been questioning whether they have the capacity to stay the course for the rest of the season. Now, we know Arsenal were Manchester City's biggest challenges last season, and we know that Liverpool are just not going to go away because Jurgen Klopp is a manager who instills a lot of belief in his team, and he is rejiggering his midfield enough to be able to keep up to pace with the teams at the top. So Manchester City needed to win this game, and the game started off pretty rough. The first 10 minutes were kind of even, and Manchester United tried their best to coax Manchester City into trying to attack them and trying to take them on the counterattack. But what Manchester City tend to do very well is after weathering storms such as these, they are able to press ahead. And what ended up happening was Manchester City went ahead on a very controversial penalty, in my opinion. Now, I am not going to argue the fact that I think it was a penalty. I'm going to argue out the fact that we see challenges like these not given. And the fact that you see Manchester City benefiting from this is going to raise questions when another side is not going to benefit from it. Now, Højlund was adjudged to have pulled back Manchester City's Rodri. And yes, it was a foul. Anywhere else on the pitch, you would say it's a foul. And I am still in the books of the fact that it is a foul. It was a penalty. The only problem is that next week, if Everton are taking on Liverpool, are Everton going to get that call? If Luton Town are taking on Arsenal, would Luton Town get that call? And I'm not trying to say that this is favoritism. I'm just trying to point out the fact that these calls tend to go for the bigger teams. And when Manchester City got this call, the question is, if this is going to be the way refereeing is going to be, we need to have a certain consistency that is placed on all other teams. Now, you're not going to achieve 100% accuracy, and not all umpires are going to look at the same challenges the same way. But yes, this was a clear foul, a clear drag, and a penalty. But if they're not going to be consistent enough to place all these same decisions on all the top teams and all the bottom teams, then we are going to have a lot of problems. Anyway, Manchester City went ahead, and from that point on, Manchester United struggled to keep pace. The first half had some drab moments, and it had some good moments. Manchester City did not really need to get out of third gear, and Manchester United were just going with the flow. They didn't seem to have any foothold on the game. Manchester City were not extremely dominant, but they controlled the game, and that's all they really needed to do. There was not much in the way of a Manchester United flurry until we got to close to halftime. And this is where the problem comes in for me. When Erik ten Hag is trying to shape this team into his image and what he believes is going to be the best team that could face Manchester City, some of the decisions he had in this game were questionable. I look at the midfield that they started with, and I thought that they were leaving themselves a little open to Manchester City being able to take control of the game. And the fact that Manchester United did not really approach this match with any concrete way of trying to take down Manchester City. I didn't see them trying to be counterattacking. I did not see them trying to be possession-based. They just seemed to be there. And that's the worrying thing for a lot of Manchester United fans and anybody who's in the camp of trying to make sure that Manchester City do not run away with this title, is that whenever teams are facing up against Manchester City, they seemed beaten right before the game even started. Now, as we went into the second half, Manchester City now took total control of this game. Erling Haaland, after slotting in the penalty, had another opportunity to head the ball in, one which he took advantage of. He had a similar opportunity in the first half, which Onana spectacularly saved. Although the ball was conveniently in the center of the goal and it made it a lot easier for Onana to save, nonetheless, it was a very good save. Manchester City were now in total control. They had over 65% ball possession at Old Trafford, which, when you think about it, is crazy. I can remember before Sheikh Mansour bought Manchester City, and when this was a fixture that Manchester United would routinely win. Manchester City were just always hoping to get a goal. You know, I remember the days of Sean Goder scoring a couple of goals as they beat them. I remember the days when Stuart Pearce was the Manchester City manager and they managed to nick a win. Those were rarities. And now it kind of seems as though Manchester United victories in the derby are rarities. And the worst thing that comes out of games such as these is not really as much the scoreline, but it's the performance. I remember when Arsenal were also struggling in their games against Manchester City. One very pivotal game that, to me, pretty much marked the end of Arsene Wenger's reign as Arsenal manager was a 3-0 home defeat that had come so close off the back of a 3-0 loss in the Carabao Cup final. The mood in the stadium was so drab. It was such a soul-sucking, such a soulless performance from Arsenal that day, and the stadium was half full. And that was the moment, I believe, that Arsene Wenger himself knew that I think I have to step away. Now, have Manchester United gotten to that level of where the performances and the fans just don't stick with them? I think so. Because part of me wants to look at the ownership structure. But in this very game, I'm going to lean into Erik ten Hag. And a lot of the decisions he chose to go with in this game just did not fit what Manchester United are or what they should be doing against Manchester City. This is a side that finished third last season. And you would hope that they would be trying to elevate themselves into a conversation where they're challenging for the title. But there always seems to be this roadblock that Manchester United hit either on the second or the third season of a new manager's reign. And I do want to make a video a little later on speaking about some of the travails that I think Manchester United have been facing over the last 10 years since the departure of Sir Alex Ferguson as manager. And I will probably address this a little bit more in that video. But one of the things that I realize about Erik ten Hag and Jose Mourinho or Louis van Gaal or Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is that none of these figures were strong enough to take Manchester United from being competitive to actually winning the Premier League title. Jose Mourinho finished second in a feat that he called one of his best achievements in his career. And I do agree with him, because the side that he had at the time really should not have challenged for the title as they did. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer did the same. He finished second as well. And it just seems immediately they finish second, or whenever they're close enough to look as though they might challenge for the title, there is this roadblock they hit and there's a very significant dip. Now, it might have come very early for Ten Hag to feel that dip that they have felt right now. But it is something that I'm thinking when I watch Arsenal, who have a figurehead in Arteta who knows the club inside out. And he probably realized the gravity of the challenge that he was facing when he became Arsenal manager. It's the same thing with Jurgen Klopp at Liverpool. When he came in, he knew the gravity of the challenge he faced. And one thing about Manchester United is I think that they need much more than just a manager who will come in and organize the team. Manchester United is such a big name that they need a messianic figure. They need somebody like an Arteta, somebody like a Jurgen Klopp, or they need somebody who's a staunch disciplinarian with a very strong history of winning, not only at a league such as the Dutch league or Portuguese league. They need somebody in the mold of Pep Guardiola who will come into that team and make them very strong, disciplined players who are able to understand just what it means to be a Manchester United player or a Manchester United employee. Because when you look at what Jurgen Klopp was able to do at Liverpool and what Arteta is doing at Arsenal, they came into teams that were in complete disarray, teams that needed to be revamped. And they slowly but surely, in different ways, because Arteta did have his problems at Arsenal at the start, their malaise was much more evident than the Liverpool one, simply because Liverpool's was a turnaround from a team that almost challenged for the title, almost won the title, to a team that was bereft of confidence and just needed a total revamp from the Brendan Rodgers time. Arteta's team was a team that was in slow decline for the better part of the last 10 to 15 years. And a team that had been so ingrained to one individual's way of playing that they needed something different to come out and show the world that they still are Arsenal. And I believe that's what Manchester United needs. A lot of people laughed when Arsenal changed Mikel Arteta's title from head coach to manager. And I think that's exactly what Manchester United need, because right now it seems as though they have a head coach and they don't have a manager, somebody who will be the face of the team, somebody who will go and face up the press and take all the hits that the Glazers or the Manchester United staff and players are going to take. And that subtle difference from head coach to manager is exactly what Arsenal were able to do for not only their image, but for Arteta's confidence in knowing that he can now lead this team and take every instance of abuse, criticism, and vitriol that came along his way. And he used that energy to shape the team into what they are right now. Manchester United need a messianic figure, somebody who knows the club inside out and has the tactical acumen to be able to keep Manchester United competitive at the top. Or they need a very strong disciplinarian who will come in and institute his tactics and vision for the club without question. Now, this is coming from an Arsenal fan, and normally I'd be overjoyed that Manchester United are not doing well. But the truth is that in the interest of football, for the game that we love, we need to see a competitive Manchester United, because that's the only way that we will see teams such as Manchester City not running away with the title, or a Liverpool running away with the title as it was in the 1920 season. You want to have a strong Manchester United. You want to have a strong Chelsea. You want to have a strong Tottenham. You want to have a strong Manchester City, a strong Arsenal. And you want to have the chasing bunch that's immediately below that tier also strong. We see a strong Aston Villa right now. We see a strong Brighton. We see a strong, well, West Ham lost today, but we see a strong West Ham. And so it is important for us to have a competitive league, which is why, also on the flip side, I am enjoying the fact that we see Manchester United not all having their own way, because for the better part of the last 30 years, they were the dominant force in football. They're not having their own way. And that argument also makes it beautiful for the fact that we had the Super League debacle a few years ago. And this shows that as long as you have a competitive landscape in football, then you are well in your means to be able to have a very beautiful game in front of you. So getting back into the game, Manchester United were soulless for the better part of the 90 minutes. They didn't deserve anything out of this game. Manchester City did not get out of third gear, and they never really had to. And by the time Phil Foden easily slotted in the third goal, Manchester United just looked as though they wanted the game to be over. You have Bruno Fernandes throwing up fits. I don't understand how you see that as captain material. And that's one of the things that I question Ten Hag for. I think that there are other candidates in that team that could quite possibly take over the mantle, since he transferred the leadership from Harry Maguire to Fernandes. And the worst thing that could happen to this team is for them to continue ebbing right into the abyss, because that's where they're going. 5 wins and 5 losses marks one of the worst starts that Manchester United have had, I think, since Sir Alex Ferguson took over from Ron Atkinson in 1986. And so Man United are closer to ground zero than they are to actually challenging for the title. And a game like this proves just how big the gulf is between the two Manchester sides. And I have faced it before. Having lost 12 games in a row to Manchester City, we know just how hard it is for a team to face up against Man City. The gulf in quality is so far between the two teams that the historic name that is Manchester United is now being dragged in the mud. And it's not going to get any easier anytime soon. Now, they do have a decent run of league fixtures for the next 3 or 4 games. I believe they face Luton and, they face some other sides that they possibly could get some wins from. But it's not going to be easy. And Ten Hag, some questions are going to be asked as to whether he's the man now. I loved him at Ajax. I thought that he would be a decent fit for a team such as Barcelona, but Ten Hag strikes me as the type of manager that needs to come into a team that already has the structures built for him, because this is going to be a very tough rebuild for Manchester United. That's all I got for the game right now, guys. Let me know what you think. Manchester City are still well on their way to try and get that 4th league title in a row. If Arsenal or Liverpool or Tottenham have something to say about it, they will try their best to stop them. But one thing that we can gather from the game that we saw today is that Manchester United are not going to be one of those sides. It's been your boy Izzy. I'll catch you guys on the flip side when I will try and talk more about the problem that is facing Manchester United. Thank you for watching. Peace.